Nope. Messages and emails.
And we are live, folks, as usual. So let's enjoy the share around music. Well, and Chris and John, feel free if you want to copy and paste the link into your Iowa Blood Trackers group or whatever you want to do to share it around so people, your group, can watch it live right now too if you want to. Kenny, I think, can even put it in there. So we'll look.
And I don't think I can do that on my phone without it taking me
And
off.
then that's okay. Don't sweat it, buddy.
Don't start dancing, Chris.
Don't
Pretty
take
good.
me a good time, John.
Pretty good stuff, man. John, you've already got a comment, buddy.
Yeah.
Kenny, ready?
Almost.
All right, we'll keep dancing to the music then.
Chris, come back.
What's that?
I said, Chris, come back.
Oh, we lost Chris. Here he is. We got him.
All right, I'm done.
I can't see the comments.
Maybe over on the right somewhere. All right, we'll roll intro then. Here we go. Let the music play. Hello, friends, fans, and faithful followers. We are back with another ABTA Tuesday Night Live with two of the usual suspects, Kenny and Matt, joined by two pretty faces or something close to that, Chris Moffat and John Sturdivant of Iowa, the Iowa Blood Trackers Association. And we're going to talk more about that tonight. But before we do, I want to remind everybody that intro banner is of our organizations who have chose to partner with us and offer discounts to ABTA members. If you're an ABTA member, you can go to the members page and you can get discount codes for all of those partners there. So, and we're working on more member benefits, and it's kind of a long-term deal, but I think long-term there's going to be some really neat stuff for active ABTA members, and we're excited about what the future holds there. So be sure that you patron those folks when the need arises. So, John and Chris, good evening. How are you guys?
Good, Matt. How about yourself, Bo?
Fantastic. Thank you. Yeah. So tonight we are talking about Iowa tracking, what it takes to set up a local /state network or association. You guys are in the throes of that right now. And we're also going to talk a little bit about the joint effort event coming up in September. We've been plugging it right along. The September weekend of September 13th, testing and seminar in Iowa. So we officially kicked off the planning for that with a meeting last week. So now, in honor of Network Week, I'm wearing my MDTN swag. Where is it? My Michigan Deer Tracking Network shirt and hat. See, so we're the MDTN. So shout out to my local network, and we're going to talk about Iowa's though, and just in the work, and the learnings and lessons that you guys are actually in the middle of now, and advice and recommendations you might have for others who might be trying to establish some type of local network. So before I do that, and we kind of kick it off, Kenny, what have I missed? What have I forgotten? What plugs do we need to put out there?
So that's about it right now. I'm ready to talk on this subject because this has been something I've been involved with for many years now. So
yeah, you sure have. You've certainly been involved with helping. I'll say throughout the nation, and instrumental in some of them. So John or Chris, I'll throw it to you guys. What? Let's just put it out there. Tell us about. We know that tracking in Iowa has only been, I'm going to use the air quote again, legal since 2020. You're going into your 5th year-ish. I know it's a little ambiguous. It wasn't necessarily declared legal, but it wasn't necessarily declared illegal previously, and it was this ambiguous thing. Now we know it's clearly legal. It's defined, there's a statute for it, and since 2020. So tracking is pretty new in Iowa in that sense. So I'm interested in you guys telling your story, and Kenny will have questions and comments, and so will I. And I'm all ears, man.
Go right ahead, John.
Well, Chris, I think it'd be good because you've been engaged in it longer. Maybe talk a little bit about where we've been in the past, because obviously you've got more experience and you've been involved in the network longer than I have, and I can jump in and help with.
Sure. So I actually moved here to Iowa in 19, before it was air quote legal. But it was still at that time to where, you could contact your local conservation agent and, they'd give you the go ahead and put the dog out there. There was a couple different agents that I contacted in 19 before I even knew about the Iowa Blood Trackers group itself. That give me permission to go ahead and put the dog out there and do my thing. Since then, since it become legal and has evolved greatly, we've picked up a lot of trackers. The hunters are starting to become more aware of who we are and the services that we offer. And, now we're pushing and we've become an association and really looking to put out some great tracking teams and some good information to the hunters and to our teams as well to kind of help everybody evolve and grow with it.
So Chris, what led you to that? What led you to tracking, and how long you've been tracking?
Gosh, I started with my first bloodhound. It was back in 2009-ish, I want to say. I was still active duty in the military, and I wasn't around a whole lot, so it was just kind of hit or miss. And it was one of those things where, starting out, I wasn't aware of the nationwide tracking network at all. It was more just me going out, putting my dog on every single deer that myself or my friend shot. And he thankfully kind of just picked it up naturally and took off with it. And then I moved to one of his pups and started running his pup. In other states. And then when I moved here to Iowa, I ran him the first couple of years here in Iowa before I made the transition over to the Catahoulas.
Before you got wise.
Exactly. Before I got wise. I tell you what, that 120-pound bulldozer running through the woods chasing a deer just wasn't for me anymore.
Hey, you see, I had to get that in there because Matt said the attaboy whenever you mentioned bloodhound. But
Bloodhound. I did
knew
say
what
that.
happened over the years. So
So now hold on a minute. How big is your Catahoula?
60 pounds.
Okay.
And
Male
it
or
isn't the
female?
120-pound bulldozer, I can promise.
and most of that's brains, Matt.
I ain't buying that for a second. Does your Catahoula go in 4-wheel drive mode all the time?
It does quite a bit. Yep.
Yeah. It just doesn't have the mass of 120 pounds behind it, huh?
Nope. And it can't drag me on the timber floor like that bloodhound did either.
I guess you just got to gain weight like me, buddy. Okay, we got the bloodhound digs in, got it, and I am intrigued by Catahoulas and blackmouth curs. I will tell you that. But so go ahead. You know, we always have to get our bloodhound banter in, Chris. But go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt, buddy.
No, you're good. You know, the last few years up here, we've it's almost just been kind of a Facebook group as far as the Iowa Blood Trackers goes. And we kind of got together and collectively decided that, hey, you know, let's get an association going. Let's really vet our trackers are going to be part of the association. Let's try and put out the best services that we possibly can for the hunters and, you know, for the recovery of everything we got going up here. You know, as you mentioned earlier, we are the land of the giants, and there's a big need for the tracking community here in Iowa.
You know, not just about being the land of the giants, but, you know, what is your guys' deer density like? I mean, you don't have as many woods as like we do. So do you have a high deer density?
I tell you, the last few years it's been pretty spotty. And John, please feel free to weigh in because I know your area got hit hard too. But the last few years we've had some areas really get hit hard with the EHD, and the numbers have dropped tremendously in some areas. I know, John, you can speak on that a little bit. I know your area got hit hard up there too.
Yeah. So, I mean, Iowa's typically we kill 100,000 deer every year, give or take, 10,000. And we've got 165,000 deer hunters on the average. EHD has been plaguing us lately. And what it's been doing is it comes into some of the better areas and just wipes things out. And you guys may have experience with it. It's just sickening. Yeah. And I've had it twice here behind the house, and where I would be used to shooting 6-7 deer myself and not even putting a dent in them behind the house, or you go out and you see 30 deer a night. You're just not seeing them as much anymore. Now they bounce back quick. So our deer density, however, Iowa has a lot of flat ground and a lot of cornfields, and it's got a lot of heavy timber. Where I'm at right here, I can go a mile one way and there's mile after mile of cornfields. And then I've got a big river valley where it's straight up and down hills and really rough timber. And we've got a lot of deer here normally. And frankly, we've had too many. And then southern Iowa, where Chris is at, typically they have better quality deer and a higher quantity, but there's just some areas that what it does is you've got feast or famine. You've got areas that people shouldn't be shooting deer and areas that there's still too many, frankly. And so
what are the bag limits in Iowa?
Really hard to manage.
What are your bag limits?
Well, it depends. I mean, I can shoot, I think I can shoot $3 a year. I can shoot 7 deer, maybe more if I can get more doe tags. It kind of varies on whether you're a landowner or not. And I'm talking bow hunting strictly. I don't know gun hunting. I don't think you can shoot quite as many. Very, very generous bag limits. And the DNR, in fact, I tracked for last year the DNR deer biologist. He's the guy that sets the quotas, and he shot a deer here across the river from me and tracked for him and his fiance. And got quite an education on how hard it is to really manage the deer as far as setting doe quotas, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Each county is managed separately, but frankly, within each county, there can be a lot of diversity. So our DNR, to me, they do a pretty good job. They just kind of keep everybody mad. That we've got the Farm Bureau that wants fewer deer. We've got the hunters that want more deer, and it's a tough job.
Oh yeah, yeah, same way. I mean, it's odd to me to hear you talk about your deer density and license sales, and I presume I'll say number of hunters. Here in Michigan, the deer density in southern Michigan, where I'm at, way down in the south, I'm in the second tier counties, right in the center of this, middle, east, and west, but way south. And the deer density is just bursting at the seams. It's way out of whack down here. And then, we have over, 500,000 license sales in a year, so,
Wow.
I to hear you say those numbers, they seem really low to me from what I'm used to. Now, I'm not saying our deer herd, we have a healthy deer herd in terms of number, and they're not unhealthy physically. There's just a lot of them, man. We have way too many does down here.
Yeah. I think you have to look at what percent of the states is timber, versus ag ground too. And so that can have an impact. That's why the deer densities are higher in southern Iowa than northern Iowa, because there's way more timber, way more cover, I should say. And Michigan, I think, has way more timber than it does crop ground, correct?
Yeah, particularly north. You get in the southern areas, you get I don't know what the ratio is, but there's a lot more ag down in the southern counties where I'm at. That's part of the reason the deer. So there's so much food down here for them.
Yeah, but our DNR makes no bones about it. They can manage the deer to a macro level. It's up to the landowners and the hunters to manage it. And of course it's frustrating because the hunters, they just want to shoot deer. Landowners will manage, but the hunters that come in typically don't. They just want to shoot deer. And I guess I don't blame them. But, so anyways, hope that answers your question.
So Dave Hoffman put in the comments that 47 deer per square mile in high areas to about 2 per square mile in northwest or high ag counties. And that's significantly lower than what I'm used to seeing, but I could see that for that terrain.
I'm glad so Dave's our secretary. He also is a DNR employee in the research sector, and really knowledgeable about a lot of stuff that Chris and I aren't.
I get it.
Yeah, I asked that question because especially with what we do, we have a huge impact on conservation.
Oh yeah.
When you start talking about a lot of deer lost through EHD, well, how many hunters or how many deer is lost through hunters that shoot them and don't recover them and won't use that tag when they
absolutely
kill that animal.
Nope, I go out and shoot another one. Yeah.
And it gets interesting when you're tracking, long creeks and there's just dead deer laying all over the place. It stinks.
Oh yeah, we've had EHD a little bit here in Michigan, and depending on where you're at, I think the southwest corner of the state got hit harder than elsewhere. I mean, I have had it here in my area a little bit, but I can't say it's had a tremendous effect on things. Me personally, from my observations.
Back to the association a little bit. Is it okay if I jump in a little, Chris?
Oh, go right ahead, John.
When I kind of got involved, and again, I look at it from a different perspective than Chris or Jeff would, because they're highly experienced trackers, and I'm trying to sort things out. There's a Facebook page that's got 9,500 members on it. We've got 160 some thousand deer hunters. A lot of, as I started tracking for the public, almost everybody I tracked for, they've never used a tracker before, or some of them had and had varying experiences. I know for a fact we've got a lot of people still saying, well, I didn't know you could do that. I didn't know this was available. And I don't
Oh
know.
yeah, you'll have year 10.
Yeah, I don't know what percentage of hunters are on Facebook because that's the only way they really know about us. I found it interesting that 99% of the trackers I've tracked for are 45 years old or younger, and most quite a bit younger. And there's a lot of older guys like me out there shooting deer left and right. It's funny that I never hear from them, and I don't know. And in fact, I was just thinking about that today, if that's the way it is with other trackers, or it's maybe that age group doesn't, they've got a mindset against it. But we've got a tremendous amount of work to do promoting tracking in Iowa. And there's for every deer that's wounded that they call a tracker on, I'll bet there's 50 deer wounded that they're not. And I'm just making that up. I have no idea.
Yeah, but your point is valid, and like I said, it's in the infancy stages. Legalized tracking or intentionally legalized tracking, however you want to phrase it, in Iowa. So you do have in Iowa in general has a lot of work to do in terms of I'm gonna use my favorite word, Kenny, public education. Just informing the hunting community that there are resources available. And on that topic, Dave Hoffman just posted in the 1980s Iowa study showed an 18% wounding rate.
That's huge. That's huge.
What's that?
You said what, 100,000 deer a year?
Yeah, 100,000 give or take.
Yeah,
and you know what's funny? Last year we had, I think it was our biggest EHD deer kill off. The harvest went down just a couple thousand.
Yeah,
meaning the harvest was about the same.
Yeah, so just using that number of 18%, I mean that's 18,000 deer wounded. And like Matt, like you said, there's probably more. Now that rate's probably went up because.
That was 45 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
There's probably more hunters now. There's younger hunters using smaller caliber weapons, and I'm guessing. I mean, I associate everything in my mind. Everybody's deer seasons are just like Michigan's. We have the youth season, and you go 2 weeks. I know that's not the case. I know Iowa seasons are a little different, but the way you structure your seasons, but. I bet it's more than that now. Yeah. I was just a guess.
And back to what Chris was talking about on the reason that we formed the association. So we've got a Facebook page, we've got a trackers map, there's a trackers chat, and it's not like it was bad, by any means. But we'd have 50 some, I don't know, Chris, if you know, over 50 people on the map.
57 last year, I believe.
Yeah, and so and again, I'm making this up, and I'm guessing.
Brandy. He's coming by. He still hasn't said how much.
And so out of those 57 trackers, there's probably just a few you could count on one hand that take 50 to 100 tracks a year. And I'll bet maybe only 2 or 3 people. Very, very few. And then on the other side of it, you've got a lot of trackers that they're just dabbling in it, and there's nothing wrong with that. But they may take 6 to 10 to 12 tracks a year. They're on the map. They're usually not available. And our goal, of course, is we want to have enough trackers to cover the hunter's needs, but they need to be trackers that are experienced, and you're not going to track 5 or 10 deer a year and have the kind of experience that the hunters really deserve. So we hope to be able to really improve upon that. There's Jeff.
Yeah, well, welcome, Jeff Still. Hi, Jeff.
I'm here. How are y'all guys?
Yeah, good. We're just kicking around. We're talking a lot about just deer numbers, deer density, hunter density, harvest rate, and Dave Hoffman shared an interesting statistic of 45 years ago of an 18% wounded rate, and he did qualify that some of those were wounded and survived, which we know that. Not all wounded deer die. as
No,
we
but
all-
even if you take the, just say 40% of 18,000, that's still a lot of deer.
100%. It's a lot of deer. I would hate to see what that percentage is in Michigan.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
One thing we might consider, Jeff, we were talking about the impact of EHD and all of that. I know you've got hit down there. You, of course, you've been involved in the outfitting business, and it may be kind of nice to hear what's your experience been with that.
EHD hit us hard in 2012 and 2013 here in southern Iowa, not south central, but southern Iowa. Lucas County primarily is where we were operating then, but now we're operating in 5 different counties. But 12, 13, 17, 19, and then again, we had some last year. But I would say our herd around here, around my house in Lucas County, is probably down 60 to 75%, somewhere in that neighborhood, compared to what it was in 2012. Typically in front of my house in the afternoons, you see 75 to 100 deer feeding an alfalfa field now. And back then, 12, 13, now you see 5 or 10, maybe.
Wow.
Yeah, that's significant, man, for sure.
So it's very important for you to ensure that you're able to recover every dead deer that you can on that property and not let another tag get used.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Another deer get killed
Absolutely.
with that same tag. I'm sorry.
Yes, absolutely. We have not shot antlerless deer since 2017. We shot one that year.
Nope, you just muted yourself, Jeff.
Since
There you
we haven't shot any antlerless deer since 2000. I said 17. I think it was 2019 was the last time we had anybody that shot an antlerless deer, and that's one. But so, going on 6 years of no antlerless deer being shot or taken by our hunters, in which we operate about 5,500 acres between 5 different counties. And I'm not seeing an increase in the numbers, even by, us. And we don't have a big mark in the overall scheme of things. We run about 2,500s, but even no antlerless deer being shot, and even a lot of the hunters that I know, even locals that have stopped shooting does or antlerless deer here, trying to help that herd rebound, but it's not rebounding as fast as we would like it. So yeah, every deer that's lost to EHD is it seems like if you lose one in the overall scheme of things, you're losing 5 or 6 because the numbers just drop off so fast.
Well, if it's a doe, you probably are.
Right.
So what do you attribute the slow rebound to? Just sustained EHD, or?
Yeah, I think it's just back to back. Iowa's had drought here in southern Iowa so many years. Year after year. It looks like this year we're going to come out of it some, but the just drought years, and then you get the puddles that those midge flies like to breed in, and they get bit by one midge fly and get it. If they're lucky, if they survive that bite, I'm told that if they get it and they survive, then they're immune. I don't know all the scientific facts behind that, but
and their offspring, from what I hear.
Right. But I think it was in. I don't know if it was in 22. I think it was in 22, just north of here. I think it was in 22, just north of here in Warren County, the county just north of me, between me and John. They found, I want to say it was 23 bucks on a 700-acre farm that were dead from EHD that were, and this is a farm where they're trying to shoot only 5.5-year-old deer, which most of us are trying to do here in southern Iowa. But that really, that really is a kick in the pants, to somebody that's trying to manage their deer herd. But there's not much that you can do about it. Just kind of have to roll with it.
Yeah.
Dave is our resident stat man, Dave Hoffman, because he just commented that EHD is really spotty. 70% in some areas and 3 miles away, 30%.
Yeah, back in 2017, I had just on 85 acres here behind the house, 23 dead deer. And my neighbor across the road, who has quite a bit more timber, I think he found 3. And so it's just crazy. And I think one of the reasons it's not bouncing back, as I mentioned before, is the Iowa hunters are still killing as many deer as they did before.
Right.
Yeah.
Because there's still enough deer. A hunter goes out, he sees 75 deer, he shoots 1. Hunter goes out after EHD, there's 10 deer, he shoots 1. So they're still shooting deer.
Yeah.
So what you can't control is EHD to a degree. I mean, you as a hunter or tracker, you're not gonna control that. But what you can control is helping people put tags on dead deer that may not have been found.
Absolutely. That's big right there, because that takes down them numbers of the deer that are being wounded and not found, and then more deer getting shot. And in the end, it's only going to help our numbers and help the herd regrow. And
it's the critical C word, conservation. And we talk about it like that all the time. And it's interesting to talk about it in this context because it brings a whole nother sense of, I'll call it a sense of urgency to it, or a sense of importance maybe to the work that we do as trackers in states or areas that are hit hard with EHD and see a declining herd. I mean, so one would presume, let's just use let's say that 18% is constant, right? So to John's point, the same number, there's less deer, but the same number are still being harvested. Presumably then the same number are still being wounded.
Right.
Yep.
So
yeah, and if you take that 18,000, you say that are wounded, and obviously some live. Let's just use that 40% number. That's 7,200 of the wounded deer are likely dead. Well, how many of those have been left in the woods because they didn't know about a resource like the Iowa blood trackers?
And that's where, starting the association, formalizing it, I should say. And we've got bylaws and articles of incorporations and mission statements and on and on. But when it talks about resource conservation, and you really start to get it, that's what we're doing. And it's not just finding deer to make deer hunters happy. I mean, that's really important, and we do that. But it really has a big impact on resource conservation. And it can, in Iowa at least, since really quality trackers are in their infancy, I'm holding my hand up as I've got way more to learn than I've got years left to learn it.
Don't we all, John?
And we need more quality trackers in the state that can help with this.
Y'all may have touched on this already, but our non-resident hunters coming to Iowa is a big, it's a big draw. Iowa's a premier trophy whitetail state. People wait 6, 7, 8 years to get an archery tag sometimes, and then ground is hard to get. But I see it more from non-residents wanting our services than I do from residents, because a lot of these guys, even for a shotgun tag, you're having to wait 3 years, 2 and 3 years to get a shotgun tag, and these guys that they tell me, I want to do everything that is absolutely possible and pull out all the stops to locate my deer, because it may be another 6, 7, 8 years before I get to come back. And, I've waited that long to get here. I'm going to do whatever it takes. I use whatever means that are legally and necessary
Yeah.
to locate my animal. And so, a lot of the tracks that I do, a lot of the tracks that I know that Chris does, are for our non-resident hunters that come into Iowa. And we're glad to help them. And we're glad to help our resident hunters as well. But it's starting to catch on. Like last year, I think I had probably maybe just a few less resident hunters than I did non-resident, but it's slowly starting to catch up with one another.
So I got to ask this. This is great conversation. I want to get to what the point you're, John. But so you're right. Iowa is a premier state. It's on all of the outdoor channel shows all the time. In fact, I got a good friend of mine, tracking friend, who's getting rolling here, going into his second year, is going out to Iowa in first part of November. I just asked him where he's going to be. He wants to bring his dog. But have anybody tracked for any of the don't drop names, but I'm just curious if you tracked for any of the big name people in their TV shows?
Absolutely have.
Yes,
Absolutely
we have.
Yep.
That's
Absolutely
awesome.
have. Multiple times.
Multiple times. I know. I know some of the Michigan Deer Tracking Network people have. In Indiana, I wish those shows would feature it more. Because I will tell you, it drives me a little bit nuts when you see that arrow hit and you're going, "Oh no." And then they cut to them, yeah, there he is, and it's the next day or whatever.
Pride in that, I don't think there's they're not wanting to let everybody know that they had to bring a dog in. I mean, every now and then you see it, but not as much as it actually happens.
And it's to me, it's too bad. I understand why they do it. It's the commercialization of hunting. They have to do it for the show. They have to do it, ethically and all that. But what, very selfishly for what we do, what no greater mechanism to promote the benefit of that tractors can offer and promoting the conservation. It's not about that where the hunting shows. I mean, I'm not saying they're unethical or not concerned about conservation, but it's not what it's about for them. But boy, that would be. I do get frustrated sometimes when I see, oh yeah, there you go. There's a one lung liver gut. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't get the outfitters up in my area. They're more in southern Iowa.
Yeah.
But one of the things that strikes me as interesting, and I haven't talked to Chris or Jeff about this, is I was told when I started getting into this a number of years back that hardly, these guys are telling me they never track doe because nobody wants to pay to track a doe, or they just don't want to bother. They just shoot a doe, can't find it easy, they just go pop another one. And
yeah.
When we think about resource conservation, and so here's Bob next door, he's shot this doe, he can't find it right away. I don't care, there's more out there. And so he shot that doe, he's killed it, he's killed the two fawns that it's probably carrying. And then he goes out and shoots another one, and which is taking 3 out of the herd eventually. And then you're in an area that you're trying to get the deer population back up because of EHD. And these guys just won't call trackers. And one of the things that I hope we can do as a group is find a way to make it okay to get on the phone to call a tracker to track does, and because people just don't do it as much. Chris, I think Jeff's popped off, but are you tracking many does at all?
No. I'll say with all the tracks I do every year, maybe 3 to 4.
Yeah.
Is all the does that I'll do. And most of them are, just local guys here within 20 miles of my house that, they know who I am, they know me or know me personally. And, hey, can you come give us a hand? And that's really it.
And I probably track more does because I don't charge because, again, I'm a newer guy. Don't feel like I've got, the experience, just not comfortable with charging right now.
Yep.
and so people will pay. But the reality is they don't care that much about the doe,
Mhm.
and it really is having an impact. So I'd like to.
Yeah, that I think that's all kind of. It's probably sort of universal. I've tracked plenty of does, not a lot though.
I track a lot,
You track a lot of does, Kenny?
a lot of those.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
that's good.
I'll say this, and I, obviously I travel around the country. I talk to a lot of trackers. I've tracked in multiple states, and John, you're right. The reason why you probably track more does is because you don't charge, because hunters don't place as high of a value on the doe as they do a buck. Even if it's not a trophy buck, they still place a higher value on that than they do the doe, not realizing that without those does, you're not going to have those bucks. And they also don't realize that the antler genetics, they're coming from the doe.
Does matter too in that, yeah. Yep. So my buddy Alan, who just chimed in that he's watching now, he's going to be in Zone 4. Any of you guys tracking in Zone 4? Southwest corner?
Well, that's just to the west of where I'm located. I'm in Zone 5, but we do have a tracker, Colby Baker, that works out of Zone 4, and also Glenn Martin is over in Zone 4, and we have a couple other trackers right on the Missouri line. TJ, I can't remember TJ's last name, and then Trey Ream. He tracks some over in Zone 4. He's right on the Missouri Iowa line as well. But we get called. We kind of swap out tracks over there. Usually, if Colby's busy, he'll get in touch with one of us over here on this side, and if we're where we can, then we'll slide over there, and then he may slide over here, and so. But yeah, we do take some tracks over there in Zone 4.
Glenn Martin with the
cool.
Lemon Beagle.
Yep.
That's him.
Yeah, I got to tell you, out of Little Town Grand River, Alan Jackson said, "Yeah, Kenny, I got a whole new
Randy. Sorry.
Yeah, I got a whole new sense of intrigue with Beagles since Jim and Copper. So I was watching them work, but so developing the network and spreading the word, that's really kind of your primary mission. So where are you guys in your, so I keep calling it a network because that's what I'm accustomed to, but in your local association, where are you in that development, and what are your immediate near-term goals and then ultimate long-term goals and vision for your network, and what are the nuts and bolts and recommendations would you have for those that are trying to establish a local network based on the experience that you guys are going through right now?
So I'll jump in here for just a second, and guys feel free to jump in anytime. I'll say one of the biggest things with getting an association getting an organization network, I don't think it really matters. With getting one kicked off and going, you've got to reach out to other states that already have their organizations together. Reach out to you guys. The ABTA has been instrumental in helping us get kicked off, helping us along the way with any questions we might have. The networking portion of that and reaching out to these groups that everything, they've got everything set up is huge. For us, I know we picked up a lot of different little bylaws and stuff from other states. Other states have helped us out, kind of guided us along the way, along with you guys, and get a good lawyer. We were fortunate enough that there was a lawyer here in Iowa who happens to be a big hunter that one of the other board members, Dave, is buddies with, that he knows. We were able to work out a deal with him, and he's been helping us out along the way as well. It's the networking portion of getting something like this together is absolutely crucial.
Oh yeah, I would agree.
You know, we had Scott, Rocky Mountain Big Game Recovery, and I was talking to him
Yep.
about it. Somebody referred me to him, and he sent us bylaws and articles of incorporations. He said, he said, when we started, I started talking to all these states, and I found out that every state started by copying somebody else's stuff. It seemed like, and it just got passed around, and
Well,
so it's a
yeah.
100%. And it was amazing just how helpful the other states are.
In terms of copying other states, I say why not? You don't have to pioneer everything. The trail's been blazed. Travel it.
Yeah, I can tell you from being there from the beginning, it was Mississippi and Florida were the two first. And I tell you, we worked hand in hand because we both started the same year, and we have came a long ways. And I, just like I was helping Pennsylvania last year, Ralph and I told them, they said, well, we want to try this, we want to try this. I said, you can try it. We've been there, we've done that. I'll let you know how it's going to pan out. And some of the things they wanted to do on their own, and they learned the hard way. And but for the most part, they followed our lead because, like I said, we've been there, we made the mistakes, we know what works, we know what doesn't, and we're still evolving every year. So why not reach out to you're doing the right thing.
Oh, I agree. Yeah. And it doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to improve on or tweak things to fit your needs, your state, your laws and regs, or your mission or your vision. So yeah, I agree. I've never set up a state local network. I'm an admin in mine, one of the Michigan networks, but it was long established before I joined it. So, I just was able to jump on board and enjoy the ride, but there's a ton of benefit, to the local networks in terms. So yeah, you get your network, you become organized, and you can help hunters find deer. But boy, oh boy, when you become that network that's a true network and not just a group of people on a Facebook page, but a true group of people that are truly looking out. But back to my own, Tales on Trails podcast I did on community. You become that true community. The learning curve for new trackers gets flattened. Not completely flat, but it's a much less steep curve, and I'm a huge advocate and testament for that, because my first year tracking, somehow they let me into my network, and I will tell you that just the all of the sudden I had immediate access to collectively, I don't know how many years of experience, that I otherwise wouldn't have. 40 other tracking teams at my fingertips, or just a phone call away to help support. And that is another benefit of the network. Not just saying, okay, yeah, we got people to cover the state. You got people to now help develop people to get better, and that's what you're doing there with the event coming up in September. That we're glad to support. Just all of that.
There's a lot of grunt work up front with the paperwork, with filing with the state, and the bylaws, articles of incorporations, on and on. We filed for a 501c3, and you got to get the right handful of people initially that are willing to do some of that work. It's just all behind the scenes. In a lot of cases, nobody else will ever see it or appreciate it, but you got to start with that foundation. But boy, you can, like with any leadership group, you got to start with people that are passionate and are willing to work. And they don't have to think alike. In fact, it's better if they don't. They don't have to get along 100% behind closed doors, but they've got to have a unified front when the doors are open, and you walk out of that meeting. You've got to be 100% aligned with each other, And
Well, yeah, but you have to start with a shared vision.
yeah, leadership 101, you've got to have a compelling vision. You've got to have a shared vision. You've got to have a way that you're all looking the same direction. There's a lot of different ways to get there, but you've got to at least be looking the same direction.
Yeah,
And having a mix of super experienced guys like Jeff and Chris and some of the rest of us that are just all over in the spectrum really can make it work. Now we're going to have some bumps, and we're going to have some big bumps, I'm sure. We've got that stuff taken care of, and we've had a map that was out there with 50 some trackers on it that everybody was on it for free. Well, now all of a sudden we're asking for membership dues and map fees, and things have changed. But the reality is, to do the stuff we need to do, you can't do it for free. And it's been coming out of some members' pockets. Again, I'm pointing to Jeff and Chris early on, and that's not sustainable. So you just can't do this in a vacuum. You've got to have support and funding by the trackers in the state.
And unfortunately, I think we're going to see a drastic drop in the number of trackers, excuse me, that we actually have on the map and members this year because of that. And when something like that happens, you just have to actually ask, what is their actual commitment level to doing what we do?
Yeah, if you're going to be on a list and form a network, you want the people to be responsive, right? Because if they're being published and advertised as a member of the Iowa Blood Trackers Association and they're not responsive to the phone calls, that reflects negatively on the tracker, the association, and then tracking in general. Oh, those damn trackers never call you back anyway, so why do I even want to bother? So if you, in my opinion, if someone is going to have their name published, it's because they're willing to uphold some level of commitment. Now, look, this is not a full-time job for most anybody. And, we all have lives and families and things that are truly significantly more important than finding dead deer with your dog in the grand scheme of things. But if you're going to put yourself out there, you're representing more than just yourself. I used to tell my football players that all the time. Everything you do reflects on you personally first, then the community, then the football team, then the community. That fast, everything you do reflects on those three things. And the same thing applies to the tracking world. The guy that's not answering his phone, that's proud to be on the list, for free, is giving everybody a bad name. I'm not saying that may not have a good reason to answer his phone, and there's no way in the heat of the battle, on November 12th, that you're going to be able to answer all 40 calls that day. But just being responsive and doing the best to do your best, that's important, I think.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
Let me ask you guys this: what's your vision? What's your long-term vision?
Just going there. Yep. Good.
So ultimately, we want to be able to get trained up and have some, experience, some good trackers. We want the hunters to have the best opportunity possible to be able to recover their wounded animals. And like with the event coming up, putting the event on, there's several of us that absolutely help out new guys coming in with everything that we can to try to get them up to speed. Always on the phone during season. Helping each other out as far as, hey, try this or try that if you're having a problem with this. I mean, heck, I still call Jeff all the time, in the middle of the season. If I've got something funky going on, I'll be like,
oh, sure.
dude, what in the heck do you think is going on here? And having the association and knowing that we've got each other's backs that way is ultimately only going to, improve the conservation aspect, because we're all working together for the same end goal.
Yeah, and I heard John earlier. He said he wants to get the word out to the hunters, and asking how to do that. And you guys are starting the right way. The right way is to first educate the trackers and the trackers will spread that word and that education in the field to the hunters, and then word of mouth will just travel
Yep.
pretty quickly.
You know, being able to provide the best training that we possibly can for not only for ourselves but for those that are coming on, new trackers that want to get started. I mean, I think that's paramount. You know, coming from a law enforcement background, you know, you're gonna do in the field what you learn in training, and
Yeah.
you know, bad training is going to be bad results in the field,
You
and
got
and that is not something that I'm going to allow to happen if I have anything to do with it. Is for erroneous information to be put out there, people to be following a training regimen that is not what works. And you know, what works. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You know, the one thing is, you know, the truth never changes. The truth is always the same. And the thing about good training is always the same. It may tweak just a little bit one way or the other as you move forward, but it's not going to. Good training is not going to set you back. Bad training will set you back a lot faster and a lot further than one good training session will will bring you forward. It's going to take you. The bad training is going to take you back further than you're going to have time to catch up a lot of times.
Absolutely.
I love that, Jeff. Man, I'm getting goosebumps listening to you talk about that stuff because I wholeheartedly agree with all of that, man. Just now, there's a lot of ways to train, right? There are a lot of, you know, I had this conversation with a good friend of mine. He says, I did this. I don't know if it's right or not. I said, well, hold on, Daryl. I says, you know, was it effective? Yeah, so you can't say it was wrong. You know, there's right, you know, the debate between right and effective, right? You know, there are clearly some, I would say, wrong, but there's lots of different ways to get to a desired result that are effective. Some may be more effective than others, but I think there's plenty of wrong.
Right.
And along with training us, it's the hunters themselves on proper wait times. You know, it's really telling when you get on the Blood Tracker Facebook page or Bow Hunter Facebook pages and somebody's asking for advice, and 90% of the advice is bad stuff. I mean,
Go check the creek or look in the pond.
Somebody say, go look right now, wait 24 hours.
Dead deer, go get it. Yeah.
Call a drone, don't get caught. I mean, on and on and on. It's just terrible. And here's this poor guy that's all worked up, and he just wants some good advice. And so that's part of our vision, part of our job too, to be able to do that. And it's you know, I can tell you, I'll pick on myself. So I'm an older guy in the group, and I'm a guy that I bow hunt in Iowa for pretty much every day of the season. 60, 75 days. We'd be pig hunting down in Texas for 2 months, bear hunting up in Canada for 2 weeks, bear hunting up in Canada for 2-3 weeks. So, I mean, I'd be spending 30% of my waking hours hunting with a bow in my hand. You know, I mean, a third of my year. And if you'd asked me, 5-6 years ago, I'd have told you I know a lot about a lot of stuff when it comes to tracking and finding and hunting. And as I got involved with trackers with a lot of experience, I found out very quickly I didn't know near what I thought I did, and a lot of what I thought I knew was just flat wrong. And
boy, oh boy,
it just floored me. And all I could think of is, I wished I'd have known this 40 years ago. But the point is that as hunters, and as men, I've got as well-developed ego as any man. We just don't listen, or we listen to the wrong people. And most of the people that are commenting on Facebook's the worst place. They're not speaking from experience. They're just parroting what they've heard somebody else say. And we know, how that works. So that's
trying to be relevant.
Yeah. So that's got to be part of what we're doing too. And as Jeff said, if we don't have trackers that are trained, that are educating hunters as they go out, we're lost, because the reality is out of 57 trackers, and I'm not trying to be rough about this, but I guess there's not a big percentage of them that really understand proper wait times. And
well, Yeah,
I'll
and
just
then,
leave it at that. They just want to go fast. They want to, they got a call, let's go. And it just doesn't work that way. And Jeff's been really, really good at wowing everybody back there.
yeah,
I make a lot of people mad throughout the year after year, on my suggested wait times, which are totally not what some that you see put out by some of the major hunting companies that you see their post flashing around in social media about wait this time for this shot or yada yada. But from the outfitting business, and I learned this going on lead when it came to Iowa, in an on lead state when it became legal here. Waiting that extra amount of time has increased recovery rates in our outfitting business over 90% of what a deer that would usually get away from us. My minimum wait time, I don't care if it's a heart shot. If they didn't see it fall, I'm not going after that deer in the state of Iowa for a minimum of 12 hours. People, and I hear a lot of people in the Midwest say, "Oh my gosh, you're just going to let the meat spoil." That's not my problem. I'm not the one that made the shot. The hunter made the shot. Not my dog's problem or the hunter made the shot. If you want to recover the deer, if you'll wait the appropriate amount of time, more likely than not, on most shots, that deer will expire. But if you bump that deer, chances of recovering that deer are slim to none. So my motto, and I tell every hunter, if he's dead at 8, guess what? He's going to be just as dead at 18. If he's not dead at 8, and you bump him, he's not going to be anywhere you can find him at 18. Or you're going to have to cross so many property lines, which a lot of people don't want you crossing their properties in the state of Iowa, because it's a big buck mecca, and I understand that. But
Well, what? Yeah, I mean, you're 100% right, and what always gets me is you come down here to Florida and the majority of the southern states, early bow season, it'd be in the 80s, 90s, even in the 90s, and we'll let deer lay 12 hours, and they're not spoiled.
Right.
Yep,
Right.
exactly.
And you tell people that here, hey, give your deer 12 hours, all the meat's going to be spoiled. Well, I don't think it's going to be spoiled. Well, I've been hunting a long time. I'm like, I'm thinking, well, I've been tracking a long time, and I've pulled a lot of deer out of the woods for clients at, a lot longer times. But, our standard weight, I don't know that you can make a standard wait time that everybody would agree with. It just in the state of Iowa, these big bucks, these big bodied, mature 5.5, 6.5-year-old whitetails, sometimes it takes a lot longer for them to go down than it does. What you see on TV and what has been portrayed to the hunting consumer is that I shot him with a 2-inch whatever, and he ran out there 50 yards and fell over. Well, they think just because the deer ran off after they shot it with the 2-inch whatever, and they saw it go behind a tree, then it's dead right behind that tree, which 9 times out of 10 is not correct. And then, and I have them every year call me from the stand. I'm gonna get down and go look. No. If you want me to come track, I'll be glad to come track. But if you get down and go look for that deer, I'm going to have to put somebody else in front of you that didn't go look for their deer and take the chance on bumping it. We need to. It took you 8 years to get or 6 or 8 years to get the tag, or whatever the case is. You spent all this time and money and effort to get here, to get there, for that 12-second opportunity to put that arrow or that slug through that animal. Why rush the next 2 hours and take a chance on not recovering the animal?
Yeah. And, you raise a point about the minimum of 12 hours and people worried about their meat spoiling. Well, that clock doesn't start ticking until the deer dies.
Right.
And if it's a liver hit, it ain't in November, it ain't dead in 12 hours in Iowa, probably. I mean, it could be. You just depend on, but you know what I mean. By the time you actually found it, it may have only been dead 4 hours, or not dead yet. I had one at 19 hours. We've all have stories like that. Still alive.
You have people look at you all kind of ways. You tell them 36 to 48 hours on a gut shot in the state of Iowa, they'll be like, well, are you kidding? And I'm like, do you want to find your deer, or do you want to jump your deer? And if you don't want to find your deer, go right ahead. But I'm not bringing the dog before 36 or 48 hours. Depending on the circumstances, so forth, so on. And we've recovered many deer over 60 hours, 60, 80. I recovered one at 103 hours after the shot. It's not a matter of, and that deer had not been dead long at that 103 hour mark. It was just one of those things. Those guys had grid search, couldn't find it. I'm sure they were bumping the deer. Called me, well into the thing, and I was like, well, I think they actually ended up seeing the deer and knew that they had jumped the deer. And I was like, hey, so it'd been like 2 days since they shot the deer,
Okay.
and then I said, hey, I'm not coming for another 48 hours. It was a gut shot. And and ended up finding the deer at 103 hours after the shot. But anyway, you got to wait the appropriate amount of time. One thing back to I'm gonna run back to what John was saying about costs and stuff like that. I did some figuring. To be on the Iowa map, it costs about 20 cents a day. About 20 cents a day for the membership fee and to be on the Iowa map out of 365 days a year, right at 20 cents. We waste a lot of money throughout the year on other things, but 20 cents is not a lot. I don't remember what the dues are for ABTA. That's not a lot of money if you do it. Even if it wasn't, if you calculated it down to the day, it's not a lot of money to be a part of a good organization that wants to help you train and learn the right thing, and us all learn together as we move forward in the tracking community.
Yeah, it's about 7 cents a day to be a membership.
Yeah, I saw you doing that math, Kenny.
I had to do it.
Jeff's making a great point, and it ties back into what Chris was saying is we may go from 57 trackers down to, I don't know, 25 or 30 or who knows what it's going to be. And it'll build back up. But the reality is there's a group of people that work their tails off to get Iowa legal. And I mean a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of resources out of their own pockets. And then there's a group of people that kept this map going for several years, Facebook page. That all come at a lot of expense and a lot of time. Sure. And I'm going to speak from myself personally here. I got on the map. Didn't cost me a dime. All I did was take. All I did was get good advice. I got on the map, got tracks for nothing. All I did is take. And, now I'm in a position that I can give back a little bit and help. And I look at the people that have been on this map for free for, however many years, 5 years, 4 or 5 years. And now all of a sudden we're asking them to support. We're asking them to give back a little bit. And if people don't want to, I could get pretty spun up about that, because there's a lot of people that have gone before us that have worked their tails off, so we can be sitting here enjoying what we enjoy in Iowa, and we owe it to these folks that have been before us, the hunters in the state, the trackers that are willing to help us be better trackers, and to not be willing to shell out a few dollars to be on a map and get our nose out of joint makes absolutely no sense to me.
Yeah, and I tell you, it does get frustrating, and I understand where you're coming from, and honestly, I spend thousands and thousands every year out of my own pocket to travel around and help people, and so and I know some people doesn't appreciate it, but there's a lot that does, and it's growing the tracking community, is helping others, is helping hunters. And then, to see what you're going through, because I've been there, still there. It's very, very frustrating, because you're pouring your heart and soul, your sweat, your money, and it just feels underappreciated. But there's a lot of people that does appreciate it.
And all we can do is get better every year. That's our job, is to get better every year. Help the trackers, help the hunters, get smarter, and it'll all come around and work out exactly the way it's supposed to.
Absolutely.
It will attract the right people, that are in it, for the right reasons. And, they want to help hunters. They want time with their dogs, and they're passionate about it. And in the end, we'll end up with a better crew of trackers in Iowa than by far it's ever had. And by far it would have had we not taken this step. I'm 100% convinced of that. There'll be a little pain between now and then.
Oh yeah.
Oh, sure, it's going to be lumpy, but having the foundation and the commitment, and dedication. There's some really good comments flying in that we'll get to, but it is important. But John, you talked about 57 people on the list. Maybe you're gonna net out at 30, 40, whatever it's going to be by the time the season rolls around for you guys. We're still in the infant stages in Iowa for legalized tracking, right? So we see this even in Michigan. So in Michigan, you have to register with the state to register. Just means you go online, fill out a form, they send you a letter saying you're a registered tracker. And in 2023, there were 241 registered trackers in the state of Michigan. And there's been this huge surge of tracker density, trackers popping up, largely because of social media. The word in Michigan, it's been legal since 1998 here. So it's really, getting out there. There's 2 primary networks and all kinds of, bow hunting pages and things like that. So word is out, and it's pretty well known here, but there's still plenty who don't. But there's going to be a normal attrition because everyone thinks, it's super cool, man. I'm going to get a dog and teach it to find deer. And how fun is that? All I got to do is follow this dog to every dead deer, until they realize that most of the deer you're tracking, you're not going to recover. And then they find out that 60% that they're not going to recover on lead in Iowa is after you've been dragged through swamps and briars and uphill and downhill and through the freaking never-ending cornfields in Iowa. I don't know how you guys feel about cornfields, but I despise them with every ounce of my soul to track it, and particularly on lead. And there's plenty of
really feel.
What's that?
How
do I really feel
about that?
Yeah, but it's work. It's not and when it's raining and 32 degrees at midnight, and you're knee deep in a muck bottom swamp chasing a deer, damn well you're not going to recover. That ain't for everybody, man.
No.
So there's going to be a normal attrition there.
Oh yeah,
so,
we've had years where we've had 180, 190 trackers on our list, and then the next year we'll go down to 95, and then the next year go back up and then down. It's a yo-yo.
It's a yo-yo, but you'll settle out. Exactly right. You're going to settle out to exactly what you talked about, John. Is the people who are going to be dedicated to want to grind it out. Now that means different things to different people. It's not fair to expect, in my opinion anyway, it's not fair to expect 29-year-old young man with 3 kids at home to be able to take 80 tracks a year.
Right.
But it doesn't mean he's not committed and dedicated. It just means that he has a different availability for where he's at in his stage of life, or job restrictions or something like that. So, finding that balance between people who want to get out and who do get out and who can get out, finding that balance is tough, because you don't want to turn people away if they truly are committed and dedicated, but you also can't say, well, you must do this, or we expect that you do this, when they're every bit as committed and dedicated as you, John, or Jeff or Chris, and they just aren't able to because of their family status or something.
Well, we want to be able to provide them with every tool that we know of that's available out there as far as training, and it's just so that when they do get to go out, because we have more trackers in Iowa that are at home, that have kids at home, have full-time jobs, can't go out and track all hours of the night and during the week and so forth, so on. But when they are able to track, we want them be confident in their
Absolutely.
ability and their dog's ability when they hit the ground, and they're going to track, whether it's for their son or for their mother or their father, or an out-of-state hunter or their neighbor down the road or just a resident hunter, whatever, that they know they're 100% confident that they know what they're doing. Their dog knows what their dog is doing is correct, and they know how to tell the difference
Yes.
when their dog is said, today's not the day, I'm not doing it. And that they don't waste 2 hours away from family when the dog is not going to perform, that night or that day or whatever the case is. So, providing that, and with y'all's help, and the seminar last year, Randy Duvall came up year before last and did a seminar for us, and everything that y'all have done for us up to this point has been so valuable in being able to help these future trackers and the people that want to start tracking, to be able to help get them to that point of, hey, I'm confident. I know that I can get out there and do this. I don't, I want to do the right thing by the deer, the animal, the client, and I can do it because so and so took the time to tell me, show me, and I learned it from ABTA. I learned it from a book I read. I learned it from wherever. But all those things coming together to make these trackers the best that they can be, to do the best job that they can do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I will say, Jeff, this year, last year we pretty much laid the foundation, laid some groundwork. This year, Ethan and I, and maybe we're going to be able to nudge Matt, but Ethan and I is going to be there. There's going to be a lot of hands-on on training tactics. So, if you're on the fence going or not, I will say, you got a pretty strong team with Ethan and I coming there, because we both train tracking dogs for a living. That's our profession. It's what we do every day. And we don't hold back. We're going to show you exactly how we do it. So it's good opportunity.
And I will say too, being there last year, our initial seminar that you guys come up and put on, the new site for this year at Lake Aquabi. I've been out there and checked out the site. If there's people out there watching that were at the seminar last year down in Sheraton, everybody knows that it was really hard hit from the derecho, all kinds of tops down. It was just, the timber was mostly a disaster to try to get through. This last weekend when I was down at Lake Aquabi checking it out, it's going to be night and day difference. And I think everybody is going to be exceptionally pleased with the difference in the area, and where we're going to be doing the test lines and doing the demonstrations.
Jeff
only
and
get
John
better,
had
and
some rough tracks.
What's that?
I said Jeff and John both had some rough test lines.
Yeah.
I was just
That's fine,
thinking, so a guy can get a tackle through it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I would tell you, I just
almost break a leg.
Yeah. I just kind of want to build a little bit on what Kenny said. And, first I want to say, I really, really want to go to Iowa, and I'm not saying no. But we'll see. Well, I really want to. I just wish it was the weekend before the weekend after. I really want to go. So we'll see. But, what Kenny said with, I consider it a powerhouse lineup and what you're getting in terms of presenters. And what we did, we're coming off from the Michigan event, and the drills and demos, that we put on there, led by Kenny and Ethan, employing the, elements that they use in their dog training, tracking dog training. We're not talking set, stay, come training, although that might be part of it to a degree, but the tracking dog training element of it is, and not being selfish and hoarding that for their own, for hired tracking service, but sharing that with the groups, and then employing that in a drill is there's nobody better. There's probably plenty as good. I will tell you, just based on what I saw, what we've talked about, and how we're going to even make it better than what I thought was already pretty darn good in Michigan. You know, I think that the Iowa event participants should leave there feeling pretty good. I mean, you know, if I go there, I'll just be the pretty face, as you can tell. You know, my contributions would be limited based on what you're getting with Ethan and Kenny.
Oh,
So,
they need to see your sexy presentation.
They do need to see that. I'd love to share that. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't.
The red
we don't
dress.
Go, we don't go that way in Iowa.
Matt just red dress.
Just wear a dress. Yeah.
There is a poll in the shop, by the way, Matt.
What's up, Chris?
There is a poll in the shop.
Okay, yeah, I'll bring my leather boots.
You know, the thought of having two people that are full-time track and dog trainers at the same event and the opportunity that prevents, you know, we really need to leverage that. That's huge.
Oh my gosh, yeah, and you'll it will be great that they complement each other great. And I'm just being objective here. You know, they have different styles and slightly different approaches, but they complement each other very well. It's just it's going to be very good. I will promise you, it will be very good. You know.
Yeah, you know, I talked to Ethan on the phone for a little bit there last night, and we got to talking about some training stuff. And you know, I've been doing it a while now, and I've talked to a lot of guys, reached out to a lot of guys throughout the years for help, and you know, to try to learn the most I can. And with talking to Ethan there last night, I'm excited. You know.
Oh yeah, I hope you are.
He got to talking about a couple different things, you know, that I had never personally thought of, and you know, just the confidence and the way he presents himself as far as, you know, the training that he does. No, I'm really excited to get Kenny and Ethan up here and talk about their training and you know, put on a great event for us up here.
Can I read a shameless plug? Do you guys mind about the event? And Kenny, go ahead and say something brilliant and engage the conversation while I find this Facebook testimonial I want to read.
I will say, guys, one thing that I really have been focusing on is trying to find ways that people can understand from a human perspective of what's going on in a dog's nose and brain. And so that's what we've been doing this year is putting together some visual demonstrations of exactly what's going on with the scent, the chaos of the scent, and how the dog's interpreting that. And the other side is focusing on the dog psychology as well as the handler, and how those two play a role together as part of the team. So that's something we're bringing this year.
Yeah. So I found what I wanted to read here. So talking about what Kenny just mentioned, and you know what I dub as the drills and demos segment of the event. You know, there's classroom seminar segment, which is important in a whole. You'll be drinking from a fire hose trying to learn all of that stuff. But then you go out to the drills and demos segment. So I just want to read this. I'm gonna read it as an anonymous because this guy's a friend of mine. He was at the event, and I really admire the work that this guy's putting in. But he says, I'm seeing vast improvement in my dog. I'm not going to read his dog's name. I'm seeing vast improvement in my dog, staying focused on the track. This is 100% result from the, he quotes, isolation drills we've been doing. Averaging 4 to 5 drills a week, working on her 90-degree turns as well as critter drills, anti-critter drills. Drills seem boring, but they are very beneficial to what we need to accomplish. So that came from a friend of mine who was at the Michigan event, and you know, we talk a lot about isolation drills, and that in I'm not, just isolating segments of the trail, as Kenny puts it, to teach the dog to problem solve and work through that. And then ultimately what he was doing here on this track, he worked those isolation drills that he'd learned. And we did as part of the demo section, or part of the drill section of the event. He did several of those isolation drills, isolating challenges of the line, not big long lines, just isolating segments. And then he put them all together in one line and he filmed it. And he got to see after doing drill work, you break down one element, just like coaching football or anything else. You don't learn it all at once. You learn segments of it. So you employ that. And then he put it all together in a longer track, only 500 yards, so not terribly long, but long enough where you could build some, multiple elements into it after isolating them, and watched his dog work through it. I watched the video today at lunch, and that's his young dog. And you can tell how excited and passionate I get about that kind of thing, because first of all, I'm thrilled to death for Tom and his young dog, that she's starting to, see improvement. I'm thrilled to death. I just said his name. I'm thrilled to death for Tom. And it's okay. I'm thrilled to death for Tom that he was able to, we were able to provide something that benefited him. He learned something that he was able to employ, and it rendered benefit to him, And the truth of the matter is, the more experienced you are in tracking, the smaller the morsels of learnings there are, and then the wider gaps there are between those morsels. But there's going to be something, that the presentation that I did at Michigan, that I thought went pretty well. Redefining success on a practice line gives you just a different way of viewing a practice line. And I'm not going to go into it here, but what was a successful practice line? Tom just figured it out, and he I don't want to say figured it out, but he saw it by breaking it down into isolating certain elements of the trail. And I just get so excited, so passionate about that. And that's the kind of thing that you will absolutely any attendee is going to walk away with and say, man, I never thought of it that way before. That was pretty neat. That is a promise. It's not a guarantee. It's a promise.
For sure. I want to jump into what you're talking about right there, about what he learned and how he's applying it. Going over to the testing, the ABTA testing. We have a lot of people that seem to be timid about testing, or skeptical about testing, or their ability or their dog's ability for testing.
Oh, yeah.
But when you go back to like training, but say law enforcement, they didn't give me a book and say, read this book about shooting a handgun. We had a little classroom, but it was that hands-on training, learning to use that weapon, to manipulate the weapon, to everything about the weapon. It was the hands-on out on the range that taught me the most about the weapon, way more than I could have ever read in a book. Same thing I think with tracking, or even going into a new job. They don't give you a book and say, oh, well, they may give you a book, you read it, but you don't know everything about the job. You learn by doing. You learn on the job, hands-on. And ABTA testing, I look at it, yeah, you might get a ribbon at the end. If you pass the test, great. But those ABTA tests are designed to teach you hands-on training with someone watching behind you to critique you throughout that test, that you don't get very many times during the year that you can take advantage of that. Don't be scared to come and take an ABTA test in Iowa. Use it as a learning tool, as a learning technique to make yourself a better tracker. If you pass the test, great, you get a ribbon at the end. But I don't know of any hunter that's ever asked me, how many ribbons does your dog have? What level is your dog?
That's
They
right.
want to know that you're that you're confident with your dog, and your dog it knows what they're doing. But there's no better place to learn it with the hands-on training that's going to be going on Saturday and the testing on Friday and Sunday. There's no better weekend for people to get the whole gamut that ABTA has to offer than that weekend here in Iowa. We're going to be doing it all, and I encourage anybody that's on the fence about testing is sign up for the test. I think there's 4 levels now. Kenny, is that right?
Yeah, we actually have more, and one that I think that a lot of people in Iowa will benefit from, Jeff, is our newly introduced it's introductory evaluation. So if you're afraid of a test, what the evaluation is basically we're going to lay. It's a simple trail, and it's just going to start with about 150, 200 yard trail with 190-degree turn. A portion of that will have blood, and the rest won't. And the blood's not a big deal about the sense. It's more of, how does that handler react when they can't see that anymore? Do they trust their dog? Are they steering their dog? So what we're looking at there is we're looking at all, where you're at, where your dog's at. After you run that, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about, hey, this is what I see. This is some areas to you could improve on. Now we're going to go and you're going to lay a line. We're going to establish a baseline that we feel that you and your dog is capable of right now. And we're going to show you how to lay that line. We're going to have you lay it. And then, we're going to talk about some tips to improve on what we just saw. And we're going to let you handle the dog on that line. And then we're going to give you a kind of a guide on where to progress from here. So if you're afraid of testing, that's the perfect spot. It's one-on-one, because honestly, on Saturday when we're doing these demos and these drills, can you guys work your dogs on them? Yes, but we won't have the time to focus on everyone one-on-one. It's not reality. So if you feel like you could benefit from that, and maybe you're not ready for a test, or you feel you're not ready for a test, at least do that and get that one-on-one time with the experienced judge.
Yeah. Let me address Chris Johnson's question here, because it's relevant to this topic. Chris asks, if you passed the started test already before the introductory test was created, can you skip the introductory? So, Chris, yes, the introductory is not a requirement in the testing succession, whereas started, seasoned, finished, elite are. Those must be sequential. Introductory evaluation is not in that structure. It's available for those who, just as Kenny said, just not sure where they're at, not sure if their dog's ready. Maybe they just got their dog, and it's just an assessment, and gives you a map forward to get you into preparing for that starter level test.
Yeah, and I will tell you this: we've had a lot of people sign up for it, and the vast majority of them, they were more than ready to take the test, and a lot of them, they needed that little boost of confidence, and a lot of them said, "Hey, can I go ahead and sign up for a test this weekend?" Because they really were ready. They were just scared. They were nervous, but this gave them an opportunity. Hey, it's not a test. I'm just coming here to get advice, and realize, hey, I really am better than what I thought. And they needed that boost of confidence.
Absolutely. Other perspective. So I want to comment on a couple of things, going back to what Jeff said, if you guys don't mind. So, Jeff, you talked about, in law enforcement, you were taught to, you learn your firearms training on the range, not by reading Firearm 101 book, right? But also part of that, you didn't go to the range and they say, okay, go ahead and execute the FBI qualification. No, they didn't do that. You broke it down. You broke it down in tactical reloads versus administrative reloads, right? You did those isolation drills for the elements of, grip and squeeze and all of those things, how to draw and hand placement. You worked on all of that stuff intentionally for those particular things. You isolated elements of properly, administering your pistol, right?
Right.
And then you go into some qualification, whatever it is for the division of law enforcement you were in, right? So you isolated it. Same thing can apply if you choose to testing, or excuse me, not testing, but training. Isolating the elements of a trail. A straight line of deer scent is nothing. And that's part of my redefining success presentation. But the other thing I wanted to mention is, Jeff, when you were talking about testing and people who may be apprehensive and nervous about, I don't want to say Ian was afraid of it, but people are certainly nervous about it. And I'll tell you my testing story where I have flipped and have probably a psycho the other way now. When I first got into started tracking, in order to track in Michigan, you had to have a certification. So and they always said UBT because really at the time that was the only thing there was, at least a level 1 certification. And to be in my tracking network, they wanted us, they were required to have at least a level 1 certification. So I got my level 1 certification. I was pissing down my leg the entire time on that test, and we did very well on it. But I peed my pants. I was that nervous about it. But we worked hard to prepare, and we hadn't tracked a deer in our life. Well, we had to, but Baru and I hadn't together. So that there was that. But and then from that point, I built this wall. Okay, I got my certification, and then I built this wall for testing, saying, there's no reason for me to go for my level 2. It doesn't get me anything. I don't gain anything from a level 2. I don't need it to track in the state. I don't need it to track for my network. I don't need it. I built this wall. So I kept putting up, don't need it. Well, then there was this, I call it an awakening, just an absolute light switch, really, for me. And I did it on one of my own podcasts when we were with some friends that you probably know. And we were talking about a UBT3 test, and then my wheels started turning, and then some other friends that on the next podcast was a light switch for me. And I realized how short-sighted and how I was letting my ego defense get in my way of growing and getting better because I refused to test, because I don't need it. No, it's not that I didn't need it. It was I was too scared to. I was afraid of failing, and my ego wouldn't let that happen. And the best thing, that was one of the greatest and defining, as a watershed moment for me in my tracking career so far, in flipping the switch. And now, I've got, I got 3 UBT certs, two ABTA certs, and I failed a finish level test, ABTA finish level test. But I learned a ton. Kenny was one of the judges on that test. So the feedback I got from Ethan and Kenny was invaluable for me. And I'll test for this finish level again. But Ethan just kind of because I judged Ethan on his finish level test, and he also
retaliation.
Yeah, but the value is there, and Jeff, you are so right, folks. Please don't fear testing. The ribbon, whether you would leave that test with the ribbon or not, has no bearing on whether or not your dog and you as a team are going to be able to recover a deer. The value is in, Kenny and I talk about this all the time. The value is not in the ribbon and the certificate. The value is in the work you did to prepare for that test. Therein lies the value. And then the feedback you're going to get, pass or fail. If you pass, you can still get valuable feedback, and maybe more of that feedback is more validation than critical feedback, but even if there is, hey man, you know what? I noticed you tend to choke up on the lead when the dog gets in search mode. Just back off from that a little bit. That's good, valuable stuff. Pass or fail. And what I always say is the worst thing that happens if you do not leave that test with a ribbon. I refuse to use the word fail, although I just said it in my own instance. The worst thing you got was a private lesson.
Yep,
that's correct.
So man, just don't be me. Don't let your fear of failure, which isn't failure, impede you from getting in front of testing and getting in front of a judge and getting that feedback. And because believe me, the judges want you to pass just as bad as you want to pass.
If not more.
Well, sure.
What's that, Kenny?
If not more, sometimes.
If not more, sometimes. But one thing we're not going to do is compromise the standard, because if we compromise the standard, we didn't do you any good. Because the value is not in the test or the ribbon. The value's in the preparation.
When I was judging Jeff and that bulldozer came down that line,
That was
Jeff more devastated than he was.
We've heard that story about 5 times. Your bulldozer.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I was more upset than he was. I'm like, oh my gosh. He was like, it's no big deal. We'll get through it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. Yeah. What let's hit some comments, because there's some good ones. Now I gotta tell you, Dave has been fantastic in answering a lot of these. This is Dave. Anytime we're talking, you need to be on, because you are you're our comment manager now, because this is really good stuff. Kenny, if you see any here that you want to grab, or anybody else, if you can see them, if you see one that you want to snag, be sure you call it out. And there's some long ones here. So
yeah, there's been a couple on mentorship that I would like to touch on.
Oh yeah, I saw them and I want to hit them too. So, but we'll get to it, Kenny, because I know where you want to go with this, and I really want to too. But let's hit Chris Johnson's. Going back to when we were talking about people not calling or not being aware. There's a good few people I track for that don't think to call us because there's no blood. I've had so many conversations with the public that didn't know that blood tracking dogs don't need blood. Hate that name. Yeah.
I hate that we have to use the name in our, I guess you'd say, marketing, because it's not necessary for the dog to find a deer to have a bunch of visual blood. And in all reality, if you do have that, I mean, you're not going to need the dog. But it's been called that for so many years, and that's what so many people is used to. So we have to use it.
Well, we have to use it, and we can't be the American Deer Trackers Association, because people are tracking hogs and elk and moose and other species. So and we certainly aren't going to be the American Interdigital Gland Trackers. But that's a good point. And it's the misnomer that is somewhat self-inflicted.
Self-inflicted, yep.
Last night, Chris was tracking a wallaby. I think that's how you pronounce it, like a little kangaroo.
Yeah.
For somebody up in Northeast Iowa.
Really?
Yep.
Not this Chris. That was Chris Johnson that was doing that job.
Yeah, Chris.
Oh, okay.
You don't want to be labeled with that?
Moffat's the chinchilla tracker.
I tracked a chinchilla one time. They got loose in the parking lot of a hotel out of this guy's vehicle, and dog took the line, and 3 different times I restarted it just to make sure, and it took us down the first floor hallway and stopped at one door going into one of the rooms every single time. And pretty sure that somebody picked up that chinchilla, and I don't know if he ever got it back or not, but at that point my job was done.
That is too funny. We had a call for somebody to track an alligator in Detroit in my network. We didn't take the track, but it was apparently some famous YouTube alligator, and it was on the lam. I don't know if they ever found it. Let's see. So Ron says, Ron Slifer says, curious if drone legal in Iowa. If not, any talk of it? I think.
So there's talk of it.
There's definitely talk of it.
Yeah,
Not legal.
not legal yet, and probably won't be this year. What is it? And if Dave Hoffman's still in here, he'll absolutely be able to.
Dave replied to it, I think.
Okay, yeah.
There's a new bill coming for the next session.
Yeah. Let's see. Kelvin Dennis, he's an admin in the Michigan Network and a good friend, and also an ABTA judge. Kelvin said, I applaud you guys for taking the time to get an association up and running. The hardest part is having dedicated people to commit a ton of work to keep the wheels from falling off. I don't know much about Iowa Group, but so far, hearing your input, I commend the work you are doing. As with anything, with great time, your effort will prove to be effective. Yeah, just another shout out there,
Calvin.
and acknowledgement. Like I said, he's a fellow admin in the Michigan Deer Tracking Network and been tracking for a while. So here's Dave's. See, here we go. Dave citing chapter and verse for. I think he's asking Alan, responding to Alan, and I don't know the way the comments and stuff come up on my feed here. It doesn't show if it's responding to a question like it will on Facebook.
Yeah, he was responding to him asking the requirements of being able to track in Iowa.
Okay, yeah, there you go, Alan. You got it, buddy.
That's a good one. Ron Slifer's right there on the crossing property lines that Chris Moffitt could gladly share.
Yeah.
So let me read it. Let me read it, Chris. What is law on tracking Iowa concerning property lines? I had heard a hunter can continue on the track without permission as long as they are on blood, but a dog and handler cannot. Again, I have no idea, but was told that information from someone else.
Yeah,
that is correct.
True story. The hunter themselves, if there's blood at the fence, can continue on, but without permission, the dog and handler cannot.
You want to clarify the permission side between leasing?
Absolutely, I'd love to.
Yes, Chris. I sense a story.
So we won't get into that story per se.
Okay.
However, I will say that if it is a property that you were getting permission to cross over onto with your dog to track with, you better darn well make sure that property isn't leased by someone other than the actual landowner. Here in Iowa, you have to have permission from the individual that is actually leasing said property and not actually the landowner themselves. The landowner can tell you, yes, take your dog in there all day long, but if the leasee does not, they can come after you. And more than likely around here, they will come after you. It can get really tricky.
That is really interesting, and now that raises a question for me in Michigan. I don't think that rule applies to Michigan, but I'm going to be finding out because leasees
definitely worth looking into.
Yeah, you don't want a trail camera picture with your face on it, Matt, on Facebook.
No,
we've experienced that here in Iowa as well.
That's why I wear a ski mask when I track. I look like a cat burglar. No, I'm just kidding.
Back up to the law.
I mean, I can't lie. There's times that even if I've got permission to be on that property, if I see a camera, I'm going to walk around it just because I don't want my picture out there.
Hey, you know what I heard somebody say, and I'm going to start employing this. If when you come across a camera on a track, you know, this guy makes his hunters take their phone, displaying their number, and go put it in front of that camera. So it takes a picture of the hunter's phone. So if the camera owner needs to inquire, they know who to contact.
Interesting.
I'm like, that is interesting. So I may employ that. Worst case, if that guy doesn't want to, I've got his number. You can pull up mine and put it in front of there,
Right. I'm going to start putting Jeff's phone number in front of every camera I walk by.
No, that's what I do. I mean, I wear other tracker shirts when I go on track.
That's what I was about to say. I'll send you some Triple M tracking out of Leyton, Iowa shirts to wear in Michigan.
Yeah.
Well, Calvin, we just read it. Calvin, if you're still listening, you scoundrel, this guy has a tendency to, when a bunch of us are together tracking, he has a tendency to pull out his tracking logo sticker and put him in a inconspicuous spot on your vehicle. So you're driving around advertising. The one on my vehicle is still there. So yeah, I'm gonna get myself a Calvin Dennis. I just said your name, Calvin. I'm gonna get myself a Calvin tracking shirt and start wearing it around on all my tracks. He wants to track down here in South Michigan. I'm going to get him on all the trail cameras.
Backing up to the hunters being able to cross property if they've got blood, one of the things to note is it can only be the hunter, not him and his 5 buddies.
Yep.
Because we've had that happen before, and they got to leave their weapon. And I'm not going to say a lot of times, but I know it's happened to where people have dumped blood on the property line just so they can go in and push deer off of it with their 5 buddies, to where they're hunting. So it gets abused.
Oh, like anything, right, John? And I never even thought about that, but that absolutely probably happens more than we want to know. So we'll get to some other comments here, but Perry says, if you're going to be a member, you should contribute monetarily or by contributing time to the organization, going back to, developing the network and commitment and contribute. Let's just call it contributions. Yep.
Yeah. We've got, I think, 7 or 8 out-of-state trackers that are on the border, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois primarily, that want to be on the map, and then they come into Iowa and track, and it's really nice to have their support.
Yeah.
Chris, I joined and paid, and I don't even track in Iowa, and I'm a long ways away from it. So if I can spend that money to help you guys out, the local trackers can too.
Yeah, we appreciate it. We'll send you some tracks.
Oh, I was planning on coming up this year. If that hurricane wouldn't hit, I was coming up to track for a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Chris says having dues make sure that the associate trackers are answering the phone and taking tracks. Kind of going back to what we talked about. If you're going to do it, be sure. John, Brian, giving you a shout out, buddy. John Sturdivant, you are the best of the best. I don't know why I limited you like that, because I've heard you're the better of the best. Best believe you're the baddest.
That's because he wears the best name brand flip flops there are out there.
There's a comment in here about that too.
They pick on old people in this state.
Oh, I can sense it's very rude, John.
Thanks, Brian.
So Calvin again, who maliciously plasters his stuff on other people's vehicles, says, and this is an interesting question. What is your vetting process to be accepted to your association, and do you have a mentorship program?
So as of right now, we do not have a set up mentorship program per se. We are looking at new trackers and wanting to guide them along the way and help them out. However, we do not have an actual program set up for that yet. A lot of hoops jumping through right now, just getting things rolling and started, especially with the season coming up here real quick. With the vetting process itself, I know I've made numerous phone calls and reached out to numerous people from other states, inquiring about some out-of-state trackers that want to be on, part of the association and on our map. people that I don't know personally, that I've never met, never heard the names. There's a lot of trackers, small community. Everybody's going to hear a name at some point in time or another. But we've been working through pretty hard, I think, as far as betting trackers and making sure that we're getting the quality trackers that the hunters deserve on our map and part of the association.
So,
Yep.
with that said, talking about a mentorship program,
There it was. Yep.
I want to bring up what we have going on behind the scenes right now. So we have kind of restructured our board, and we have started developing some new processes. And one of our new board members, Emily Nail, she is working on a nationwide mentorship program. And I believe she told me yesterday, now that this all happened last week, Matt, right? When
Yep.
we started, well, she, we've had a mentorship program for a long time in Florida. So, she had some material to kind of get her started in the right direction. But she notified me yesterday that she has the program almost complete and plans on presenting it to us next Thursday. And so we are going to be working with, we're going to have a nationwide mentorship program that we are going to work with folks like you guys. So if someone contacts us and let's say they're in Iowa, they may reach out to us, and then we're going to have our team reach out to you guys and say, hey, is there anyone there that can mentor this person? And if not, we're going to do it remotely. We've had success with that in the past where we've mentored people that's 8, 9, 10 hours away or other states away. I mean, all the way across the country. But that's something we are working on as an association. So if you guys do not have that program in place, we're here to support that. That is what we're working on right now.
And let me just say that I was chatting with Emily today, and she shared with me what she has. Oh, I forgot. Maybe this is supposed to be a secret. Sorry, Emily. I'm not sharing your content, but I have gotten a sneak peek at what she's put together, and holy crap, is it good? Is it good? I'm super stoked about it, and what I'm excited about is I'm the education director. Somehow Kenny made me do that for one, but so I get to work with her on some of the material for I hate the word educating, but some of the education material for mentors and mentees, new trackers. So it's going to take some while to get really get a foothold, but when it does, it's going to be good. And even the pilot year is going to be really good. Emily's put together some great stuff.
Awesome. We're pretty fortunate to have you guys on our side and being able to help us out as much as you have already through this. I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing what she gets put out there.
Oh yeah, you'll see it in due course here, but it's good. Brian, just chiming in on the change in venue. The Lake of Quabi is a wonderful state park. You have to be careful. There's a lot, and I would say a lot of impassable honeysuckle. Be careful setting lines from GPS before scouting. Kenny, and you test judges. If you need,
that's where the deer goes, Brian. You ain't getting out of it. If you're going to take that multi-dog test on lead with your 2 dogs. There's a challenge for you, Brian.
I will say there to Quabi, they've been working really hard to clear a lot of that honeysuckle and get a lot of that out of there. There is still one section on the north side of the property said was still extremely thick with it, but they're working hard on getting that a lot out.
Is that
So
where
is
you're
that where
laying
we
my
need to put
line?
Brian?
What was that?
Is that where you're going to lay my line then?
Oh
Chris?
no, yours goes down along the lake.
Okay.
Maybe in the lake.
Walking on water.
Maybe in the lake.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, you want my pup to chase frogs then? Huh?
frog hunter. My grandson and I, we were. Oh, I showed you that picture, Johnny, on your post. We were hunting frogs at the campground. We only found a couple of snails, but it was fun. So, Kenny, here you go. And I have something on this too. Any suggestions on attracting and recruiting the hobbyist tracker to the test and events? Approximately 40 plus Iowa hobbyists, as he puts.
Absolutely. So I'll tell you this. We, and I know I keep bringing up PA, but last year they had, I think the biggest list in PA was like 30 something trackers. And we basically, we really grew tracking there. And I'm saying we, because Ralph and I helped the team there and kind of led them in the direction. And I believe they had 83 or 84 trackers on their list this past season. The year before there was 31. And where did they come from? It was hunters out there that wanted to get into tracking but didn't know how. And when we started targeting the hunting groups and sharing their network, people came out of the woodwork like, hey, I have a dog. I've been working with it. I don't know if I'm doing it right, but I want to track. And, it blew up. And it's amazing. And then we went there one month and we had, I don't know, 40 something people that attended that seminar. And when I left there on the ride home, I told my wife, I said, we got to go back. We have to. And we went back 30 days later and Matt was there.
Yep.
We probably had close to 30 people there. And some of them were hunters. And that the bulk of that was reaching out to the hunting community, not focusing on the tracking community. You've got the trackers. They know you're there. Even the hobbyists, they know you're there. You've got to reach out to the ones that don't know you're there, that want to become trackers or are interested in it and want to learn more about it.
Yeah. And in terms of attracting the hobbyist, and that these kinds of things will separate the hobbyist from the people who want to do it as I guess it's all a hobby to some degree, but do it more of a lifestyle than a hobby. That's I consider it a lifestyle for me, is engaged as I am in tracking year round. Track every day is tracking something a lot of the day. But separating the hobbyists from those who really are committed. But just sharing what we do, just what you talked about, what John talked about. How do we reach people? Getting it in the Iowa bow hunters and the this bow hunters and the that bow hunters and the this, the local conservation groups, and just showing how fun it is, showing that it's not a scary thing. The testimonials of people taking the test like me who failed one and learned a ton and could, I wish I had the blue ribbon, don't misunderstand me, but I am not the least bit upset that I don't, because I learned something, and I know that blue ribbon does not impact my dog's ability to find and recover deer. And just breaking that stigma. That is that's the hard part, man. But just sharing and talking about it and normalizing it. Let me grab Caleb Abel's comment here, because it's in line with that. I 100% agree with nerves of testing. I screwed up our UBT2 due to my nerves. I was not in the right headspace, meaning I was taking it way too serious. I wasn't looking at it as a learning opportunity. I pulled my dog off the line twice unknowingly because I was so mindset that I needed to pass this test. I failed us as a team before we even started. And Caleb, you just very eloquently illustrated probably the lion's share of the reason people fail a test. Seldom, I think, does the dog fail. Kenny, you have way more experience than I do as far as testing, but I've talked to plenty, and I've seen enough now that the dog is usually okay if you put in the work. Sometimes I struggle.
Hey, I'm gonna be honest. I'd have to go back and look, but I've tested. I don't know. I got the numbers for John and I. John and I, we together we have probably over 60 certifications, different levels and dogs through multiple organizations, and there's still times where I get nervous, and I failed one last year. I failed it within the first 30 yards. My head wasn't right before I even went on it. I knew I shouldn't have went on it.
Yeah. Well,
it's going to happen.
It's going to happen, and same way with my finish level. I went in there feeling decent about it because of the work we had done and the success we had leading up to it in other testing and in the few practice lines I was able to get on this year leading up to it. But it's feeling okay, but it's the real deal. I was nervous about it. You always get a little bit of a complex when you have two experienced people behind you who knows where the line is, watching you make the dumbest decisions ever. Like
trying to game it.
Like trying to game it and like trying to going back to the same place you just got a call back from.
Yeah.
What kind of meltdown freaking stupid crap is that? I mean, it gets in your head, but and by the way, that was me.
That's why I'm laughing. So
I know, but but you know what? So what? You didn't fail. Well, it's good stuff.
Now we have a story to laugh at you about.
Like you needed something.
With you. I'm sorry, with you.
Oh, that's what it means. I'm not letting this one slide. I'd like to give a huge shout out to Jeff, Chris, and Dave and John for mentoring me into deer tracking. So there you go, boys. Your impact and influence is now internationally known because, I don't know if you realize this, but the ABTA Tuesday Night Lives, we're international. We had somebody from Newfoundland listening the other day, or I think, was it Newfoundland? East coast of Canada.
Yeah, and on our audio podcast, I mean, I'm pulling up now on like Spotify and Apple. It goes on all of them. But here's the countries that listen. Of course, the U.S., but United Kingdom, Canada, Belgium, Germany, the Netherlands, Russia, Denmark, Mexico, Australia, Poland, Ireland. And it's United Kingdom's been coming on strong. In the last week, they went from, or I'm sorry, last 2 weeks, they went from 3.2% of our listeners on audio podcast were in the UK 2 weeks ago, and this week we're at 5.8% of them.
Wow.
So
it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
I mean, we're no Joe Rogan, but it's kind of fun for what we do. It's a fun little reach. It's kind of neat.
Yeah.
Good thing
Hey,
you
UK
didn't tell us
people.
that ahead of time.
Yeah. Hey, UK people, Chris Moffat and I, we've got dogs. We will travel. I don't know what you got to track over there, but yeah, hit us up.
Passport is ready to go.
If you
we'll
have a
drink
chinchilla loose in the UK, Chris will come.
Yeah, yeah.
We're all about some tea.
Yeah. Let me just grab Caleb Abels again because it's a follow up to what we were just talking about. It says, yeah, I knew, and I know she can do it. In fact, I feel like I learned more from failure than I did if I had passed. So again, that is not a failure, Caleb. If you walked away with something, you didn't fail, man. And thank you for sharing that.
And the same on real tracks. You're going to learn more on the non-recoveries than you will on the recoveries, and so will your dog.
Yeah.
Yep.
Grab another one from Dave here. And Dave is our resident deep thinker today. And I mean that in a very honest and respectful way, Dave, for sure. A sincere way. Regarding mentoring and recruiting, any thoughts with working with agencies and nationwide R3 staff?
So yes, I'll touch on that. That is part of our plan. Our long-term strategy is we have currently divided the nation into two regions, a northern region and southern region. And all this will be update on the website soon. Our northern region director is Joe Tenney, and our southern is Coda Stewart, and their initiative short term is to basically find liaisons for each state, and we will be working with those liaisons to build those relationships on these with these R3 staff and agencies and local tracking associations and hunting groups, and to expand our network and our outreach.
Yeah. Again, that's just a lot of moving parts and a lot of going on for the ABTA, and it's going to take a while for it to all come together because there's some pretty significant upgrades, I'm going to call them, in our structure and our approach. But it's all going to be so good when it finally blossoms.
And I will say, so with all this, I mean, this is a huge undertaking, and I mean, it is going to happen. It is happening. Everything's already in motion. We do have some member-based committees. So if you're interested in helping with these initiatives, let us know. Right now we have a testing committee. We have the mentorship committee. We have a members benefits committee. And there's more coming as we roll out all these things. It takes everyone helping out. I mean, none of us get paid to do this. None of us make any money. I mean, I spend a lot myself and time. I mean, I think Matt will tell you it might be 5 o'clock in the morning. I don't even realize what time I'm sending a message out that I'm up working on some of this stuff, and 11 o'clock at night, and I just lose track of time because any chance I get, I'm working on something to do with this, and it takes everyone.
It takes a village. It truly does for any organization. As you guys are, I mean, we're doing it on a little bit different scale than what you guys are, but you're doing the same thing. So you experience the same commitment level, dedication, heartache, aggravation, joy, pain, all of it. And Iowa is going to be better for it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. We sure hope so. That's the goal.
Yeah, I will, man. You just get the right people doing the right things for the right reason, great things happen. It's all about pure intent and operating in good faith.
Yep.
Absolutely.
You'll have some bumps along the way. It's part of it.
You're gonna have. But if your foundation is strong, who gives a shit if you snap a 2x4? You just replace it.
Yep.
You can fix it, man. If your foundation is strong, and like you said, everyone's pulling a rope in the same direction with the same common vision, looking the same way. Maybe you have a little bit different route to get to that point, but as long as you're trying to get to the point, you're going to get to the point.
You know, that common vision is so critical. And anytime there's a new organization after, I don't know if it's the 2-year time period or 3-year or a new business, you got to step back and reassess and say, is this still the vision?
You should be able to, yes, you should reflect. Are we still, is our vision still right for today?
It is.
If you don't do that, you become stagnated. You're stuck in your way. You're the old curmudgeon that won't move.
Yep.
That
Too
won't
many
change
times.
the way.
Yeah. Too many times a business or an organization, they establish that stuff and they never look at it again, and they don't use it to guide them.
You've got to stay current. You've got to stay relevant.
The environment changes, the people changes, you know, and you got to keep up with that.
Exactly.
Yep.
Let me grab Brian's question. Does the ABTA have a find a tracker page on its website? Not yet, Brian. All part of the sauce that we're brewing.
Yeah,
It's
so
coming.
the page is there, but we haven't done anything with it yet. We started on it, and we do have the vision of what it's going to look like. Hopefully very soon, I'm hoping we can get something by the start of this season, but I can't make any promises yet because it's coming up fast.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, I don't want to rush it. You know, done to me right is more important than fast. But
Yep.
you know, we want to do right with some type of diligence. But yeah, right. It's got to be done right. We don't want to slap something out there just to have something out there. It's got to be done right.
Yeah, I started on it almost a year ago, so I can tell you this: it's not just pay a membership and your name gets on the list.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. Guys, look, I just realized we are at 2 hours and 16 minutes. That's, it feels like it's been 30 minutes. So, I guess, you know, we'll go around the room with some final thoughts here. But before we do final thoughts, just guys, listeners, remember Iowa and surrounding states, hunters and trackers. If you are a deer hunter and not a tracker, you can still learn something from the seminar. If you want to learn about scent theory and thermals, guess what? Scent theory matters to anybody who's doing anything with deer. You want to learn about, you know, reading wound beds and things like that. That all applies to hunters as well, and it can help you harvest a deer, and it can help you recover your deer without a dog if you want to come and learn. And there's going to be a whole lot of dog related content because it's a tracking event, but there is so much overlap in hunting and tracking in terms of foundational knowledge that hunters can absolutely learn some really good stuff. So don't just because I don't track deer. Well, you do too. You track deer after you shoot them.
And before. Yeah, it's just like I brought up, you know, the other day on my my dog training page. I was talking about scent elimination sprays. You know, how they don't work, and people are like, well, yeah, that's why I play the wind. You know, wind in my face. Wind can be in your face all day long, but the thermal dynamics might cause that your scent to be pushed right back in the direction that you think it's blowing away from.
Yeah, there's only so much you can do. I mean, yes, you should play the wind, but just when the wind's blowing,
drills, you know,
Yeah.
one of our drills in Michigan, where you know the wind was blowing this way, and you see the confetti going that way. Then all of a sudden, what happens, Matt? It just goes, half of it goes straight up in the air
and kind of loop back. Yeah, you know, that was one of the demos. Yep, for sure.
Yeah.
So anyway, trackers. Yeah, trackers and hunters, man. There is something for you here. Week of September 13th. Lake Aquabi, and what's the name of the town? How do you pronounce it? In Indianola? Indianola. I was
Iowa,
close.
yeah.
A lot of the same letters. In Indianola, Iowa. Lake Aquabi sounds beautiful, state park. You can register at the ABTA, American Blood Trackers Association.org, AmericanBloodTrackers.org, excuse me, AmericanBloodTrackers.org.
Either one will work.
Yep. You can register there, and it's never too early to register. The sooner the better, in fact. So, final thoughts, guys?
I appreciate you guys having us on again this evening and letting us kind of talk about our trials and tribulations a little bit with what we got going on as becoming an association and the upcoming event. And it was a good time. Appreciate it.
No, absolutely. Jeff?
Well, I just want to say thank you all for having us on. Thank you for giving us a voice. Thanks for being our voice. Thanks for all the training and stuff that you're doing for all the trackers nationwide. And also want to tell everyone that the best place to be the weekend of that September the 13th is going to be at Lake Aquabi in Iowa, in Indianola, Iowa, at the Iowa Blood Trackers Association. Third year that we've held a seminar. This is going to be the best one yet, and you're going to learn a lot. And we promise you won't go home. You're not going to go home without a full stomach, because we're going to feed you good. We're going to bring some good Southern cooking. A couple things I've learned since I've been in Iowa is they don't use enough butter, they don't use enough salt, and they don't know what sweet tea is. But I'll have some of all of it for you. So we look forward to seeing everybody.
That's funny, and that's great, Jeff, for sure. Yeah, we're glad to partner with you, man. And yeah, I did get the subtle pressure to come to Iowa. Thanks, buddy. No, that's Kenny. His pressure. John,
well, thanks again so much for what the ABTA is doing for Iowa, and echoing what Chris and Jeff said. It's just hard to do these kind of things on your own without some national support. You come to the state and you bring some credibility. You bring some proven processes for these types of things that work, that just take a tremendous amount of work off of our shoulders. And also want to extend the invite to other states that may be going through what we're going through. And if they want to network with us, we're happy to help in any way.
That's
or
great.
States that with established organizations. And you want to lend us some advice on some pitfalls that you went through and ways to avoid those. We need help. And we're going to make mistakes, as we talked about. But anybody out there that can give us some advice, that can keep us from making quite as many mistakes, will be very, very grateful. So thanks again. This has been fun.
Well, and I appreciate it too, guys, and having you come on, and always enjoy just the conversations. We spend so much of our energy, and appropriately so, on trying to provide educational content to these podcasts and in these live streams. Sometimes it's just fun just to talk, and share experiences and hear other people's stories. So, in circumstances. So thank you for that. And you got a good thing going. You're doing the right thing. So just keep grinding. I'll give you one of my favorite John Woodenisms, Kenny. Success travels in the company of hard work. So without your hard work,
That's right.
So keep grinding. So guys, we're going to wind it up. I do appreciate everybody. Thank you so much. We'll have you back on closer to the event. We'll do a true event preview once things start to line out and we got a true schedule developed, at least topic and things. We'll come back on and do a true event preview. But it was really appreciate everybody's time tonight. 2 hours and 23 minutes. This has been a long one, but it's been a great one. So again, guys, thanks for listening. Thanks for coming on. More of the good, less of the bad, guys. We'll talk to you soon.
No.